A storm. A cop. A cry that cut through the wind at 28 below. That night, Officer Ryan Cooper heard 3 faint knocks and a whimper. When he opened his cabin door, the storm roared in. A German shepherd mother, soaked in frost, stood there, 2 tiny pups clinging to her chest, fighting to stay alive. He thought he was saving them from the cold. But the truth? They were saving him from years of silence, guilt, and loneliness. This is a story of courage, compassion, and second chances. If you believe that heroes come in fur and 4 paws, hit like, subscribe, and tell us. Would you have opened the door that night? Montana doesn't forgive the careless. In winter, the wind cuts through the valley like steel, and the mountains wear a crown of white silence. On this night, Seabridge was buried under a blizzard so fierce that even the plows had given up. The thermometer outside Officer Ryan Cooper's cabin had frozen hours ago at 28 degrees, but the cold still deepened, pressing through the wood walls like a slow tide. Inside, Ryan sat near the cast-iron stove, watching flames move like restless spirits. The man looked built from the same iron as the land. 41, lean but broad-shouldered, face drawn with quiet discipline. His short blonde-brown hair showed the first touch of gray, and his jaw carried a day's stubble that refused to stay gone. A thin scar ran across his right eyebrow, a leftover from a suspect's knife in a bar once called the Outpost. His blue-gray eyes carried that calm the job gives to those who've seen too much. Not peace, just acceptance. The cabin around him was simple. A bed made tight enough to bounce a coin, a duty belt on the wall, a faded photo of him and his father at the academy, the old man in his highway patrol uniform, proud and unbending. Ryan remembered his father's words every winter. Help first. Ask questions later. That rule used to guide him. Until one call went wrong. One suspect down. One partner he couldn't save. Since then, silence had become his companion. Out here in the mountains, silence was easier to face than people. The wind groaned against the eaves. The snow hissed like sand against the window. Ryan reached for his mug of coffee, cold already, when it happened. 3 knocks. Not the wind, not a branch. 3 measured, deliberate knocks. He froze, instinct snapping awake. No one should be out here in this weather. He stood slowly, hand brushing the sidearm on the table, and crossed to the door. For a moment he listened. Wind, then something faint beneath it. A whimper. High, thin, desperate. Ryan unlatched the door and cracked it open. The storm lunged inside, clawing at him with snow and air sharp enough to burn. Through the white haze stood a German shepherd, coated in ice, ribs faint beneath her fur. Her head was lifted, eyes the color of amber glass, watching him, not pleading, not afraid, just waiting. At her feet, 2 tiny pups pressed against her legs, trembling so hard their paws slipped on the porch boards. Ryan's breath fogged the space between them. Every rule he'd ever learned said, don't open the door to the wild. Don't invite what you can't protect. But as he looked into the dog's eyes, something inside him cracked. The same crack he'd felt the night his partner bled out on a frozen street. He pushed the door wider. Come on, girl, he said softly. The shepherd hesitated, then stepped forward. The pups stumbled after her, collapsing near the stove's first breath of heat. She stayed close, her body curved around them, watching every move he made. Ryan shut the door, locking the storm outside. Up close, she smelled of frost, wet earth, and hunger held in check by will. A thin white scar marked her foreleg, healed but sharp against her coat. She looked about 6, maybe 7 years old enough to know people, old enough to judge them. Ryan poured warm water into a bowl and slid it forward slowly. "Easy," he murmured. She sniffed the steam, then drank, silent and measured, while the pups whimpered softly against her belly. He soaked a strip of jerky in water, laid it near her paws. She waited until the smaller pup twitched, then nudged the meat toward it with her nose. Ryan exhaled. "You're a mother first," he said quietly. "That makes 2 of us who've lost sleep over the ones we couldn't save." The fire crackled. Time blurred. The dog's ears flicked at each noise, her breathing steadied. The pups pressed closer, their fur glistening under the glow of the stove. The cabin filled with the kind of warmth that didn't come only from wood. Ryan moved carefully, setting an extra blanket near them, his palms open to show no harm. The shepherd didn't growl. Her eyes followed him, wary but curious. He sat back on the edge of the bed, letting her decide the distance. For the first time in months, he wasn't alone, not in the way that mattered. Outside, wind swept through the pines. Snow danced across the window like ash. He wiped a small circle in the frost and peered out. The yard was nearly erased under drifts, but something caught his attention. Footprints, too large to be animal, too straight for chance, crossing the edge of the property and vanishing into the woods. He frowned. No one should have been out here, not in this cold. He checked his radio. Static. Nothing else. He thought about Nora Hayes, the forest ranger stationed 15 miles away, tough, dark-haired, and known for showing up when things went wrong. She'd mentioned trouble recently. Traps, missing game, strangers camping where they shouldn't. He made a note to call her when daylight came. Ryan turned back to the fire. The dog, he decided to call her Luna because her coat glowed silver where the light touched, had curled around her pups, both asleep now, small chests rising and falling in rhythm. She watched him, eyes half closed but still alert, the way soldiers sleep between alarms. He knew that posture. He'd worn it himself. He leaned back, the chair creaking under his weight, letting the sound of the storm fill the silence between them. A soft pop from the stove, the occasional sigh from Luna, the faint breath of the pups, all of it stitched together into a rhythm that felt like something he hadn't heard in years. Life. For a while, Ryan let his thoughts wander. He remembered the city. Sirens, neon, arguments that went nowhere. He remembered the partner who once joked, "You're married to the badge, Ryan. Just hope it loves you back." He remembered the night that joke stopped being funny. Out here, no one asked questions, and that was mercy. The smaller pup stirred suddenly, gasping, its ribs fluttering shallow and uneven. Ryan knelt quickly beside the blanket, cupping his hands to trap warm air. He rubbed his palms together and let the heat hover near the tiny muzzle until the breathing leveled out. Luna tensed but didn't move, eyes locked on his hands. When the pup exhaled evenly again, she blinked once, slow, a small, wordless acknowledgement. Ryan nodded back, as if they had just agreed on something important. Minutes passed. The fire lowered to a steady hum. He added one more log, adjusted the draft, and glanced again at the window. The footprints outside had begun to blur under new snow. Whoever had been there would be invisible by dawn. The thought made the cabin feel smaller, the walls closer. But when he turned, Luna was watching him still, her gaze calm and grounded, a reminder that fear wasn't the only thing alive in the dark. Ryan poured himself another cup of coffee, sat on the floor across from her, and studied the scene. The dog, the 2 sleeping pups, the flicker of light along her coat. He realized the cabin no longer looked like exile. It looked, for the first time, like purpose. By 2 in the morning, the storm had eased to a steady whisper. Ryan fed the fire one last time and checked the locks. Luna lifted her head, ears pricking as if to acknowledge the end of a shift. He smiled faintly. "We'll see what morning brings," he murmured. He sat with his back to the stove, the warmth climbing into his shoulders. The pups sighed in their sleep. Luna lowered her head onto her paws, one ear turned toward the door. Outside, the wind began its old refrain over the ridge. Inside, the man and the dog listened, two survivors sharing the same fragile circle of heat. For the first time in years, Ryan Cooper didn't dread the silence. He simply let it stay. By morning, the storm had softened its rage. Snow drifted in thin veils across the valley, and the world outside was white and still, as if holding its breath. The pine trees bowed under the weight, and the smoke from Ryan Cooper's chimney rose straight into a pale, empty sky. Inside, the cabin glowed with the faint orange of dying firelight. Ryan woke in his chair, shoulders stiff, breath showing in the cold air. He blinked toward the stove, where the German shepherd lay curled with her two pups. In daylight, she looked older, her fur streaked with silver, eyes deep amber, calm but cautious. Ryan moved quietly, refilling the kettle and kneeling by the fire. "Morning," he murmured. The dog lifted her head but didn't move. The pups twitched against her chest, their tiny bodies full of fragile warmth. He poured warm water into a bowl and laid a strip of jerky nearby, softened in broth. The mother sniffed, then pushed the food toward her pups. Ryan smiled faintly. "Still putting them first," he whispered. "Guess that makes us the same." The wind outside sighed against the cabin walls. Ryan walked to the window and cleared a circle in the frost. The forest was ghost-white, silent. And yet he remembered what he'd seen last night. Boot prints, human, crossing near the porch and vanishing into the trees. They were gone now, buried under snow, but his instincts wouldn't let it go. He checked his radio again. Only static. Cell service was dead since the storm began. Out here, in miles of wilderness, that silence could be safety, or danger. He glanced back at the dog. "You heard them too, didn't you?" Luna blinked slowly, her gaze steady as if answering. He poured himself coffee, the smell cutting through the damp chill. For the first time in months, the cabin didn't feel empty. The sound of breathing, the dog's, his own, was enough to make it feel alive again. Then came a sound behind him, the door latch shifting. He froze, one hand drifting to his gun. A soft knock followed. 3 short taps. He opened it an inch, ready. "Morning, officer." It was Nora Hayes, her voice carrying the crisp edge of the cold. She stood on the porch, wrapped in a green ranger parka, snow dusting her hood. Her hair was dark, tied back loosely, her cheeks flushed from the wind. 38, strong, steady, the kind of woman who had spent years talking to trees and storms alike. Ryan let her in. "Nora, didn't expect visitors?" She grinned. "Didn't plan to be one. Roads are half gone. Figured you'd be buried up here." "Almost was." He nodded toward Luna and the pups by the fire. Nora's eyes widened. "Well, that explains the tracks." "You saw them?" She pulled off her gloves, breath misting. "Near the ridge. Looked like someone dragging gear. Not hunters, I know. Could be poachers. We've had trouble again this winter." Luna lifted her head, ears twitching at Nora's voice. The ranger crouched slightly, keeping distance. "Hey there, girl," she murmured. "You found the right door." Ryan said quietly, "She found it, not me." Nora looked around the cabin, the rifle by the wall, the neat order of things. "You keeping her?" "Till the storm's done." Her tone turned serious. "Keep an eye out, Ryan. We found snares 2 miles west. Baited, not for deer, for dogs, maybe wolves. That's not hunting, it's trade. Ryan's jaw tightened. You think whoever set them was near here? Boot prints match, she said. Same size, same pattern. If they're trapping animals, they'll come back for more. You should stay alert. I already am. Nora poured herself coffee from the pot without asking. That was their friendship. Unspoken trust built from old nights on the job. Still not sleeping much? Never did, Ryan said. She gave a small smile. You look better than the last time I saw you. Guess the company helps. He followed her gaze toward Luna. Guess so. They talked a while, about the downed lines, the snow blocking the pass, the poachers who always came when the season turned desperate. Nora's voice carried the easy calm of someone who'd seen more winters than she cared to count. When she finally stood to leave, she zipped her coat tight. If anything happens, don't play hero, she said. I'll try, he answered. That's what worries me. She smirked, then stepped back into the storm. The door shut, and the quiet returned. Ryan stood there for a moment, staring at the swirl of snow through the glass, then looked back to Luna. You heard that, didn't you? Someone's out there. The dog lifted her head, eyes sharp, ears turning toward the north wall. Ryan crouched beside her. One of the pups had crawled out from the blanket, nose twitching against the floor. He scooped it up, feeling its heartbeat fluttering fast under his fingers. Tough little thing, he murmured. Luna didn't move, just watched him. He could feel trust forming, slow as the thaw after winter. As dusk fell, the wind began again, whistling through the trees. Ryan tossed another log onto the fire, dimmed the lamp, and sat near the door with his rifle across his knees. Luna stayed by the window, eyes trained on the dark beyond. Once, he thought he saw movement, something tall and still at the edge of the clearing. It didn't come closer, just watched. Then the snow swallowed it whole. He waited, breath steady, every sense tuned to the storm. But nothing came. When he finally turned in, Luna was still awake, her silhouette glowing in the firelight, the pups asleep under her chest. Her gaze met his one last time before he closed his eyes. Outside, the wind sang through the forest, and fresh snow began to cover the ground, erasing every footprint. Inside, the warmth held. But Ryan knew it wouldn't last. Silence in Montana was never just silence. It was the pause before something else began. The storm had quieted by dawn, but left its mark on everything. Snow lay heavy on the pines, muffling sound until even the air felt thick. Ryan Cooper stepped outside, boots crunching through white drifts that reached his calves. The world looked clean, untouched. Too clean. He crouched near the porch and brushed away frost. Beneath it, the faint edge of a boot print lingered, half buried but real. Whoever had come this close hadn't done it by accident. He scanned the trees, the silence pressing in. The cold stung his lungs with each breath. Somewhere out there, someone had walked to his cabin in the middle of the storm and left without a trace. Inside, warmth returned in waves. The stove glowed red, the smell of pine and smoke filling the small room. Luna, the German shepherd, lay curled near the fire, her 2 pups pressed tight to her belly. One of them stirred, too weak, chest fluttering in shallow breaths. Ryan knelt beside them. Hey, he murmured. The dog lifted her head, eyes amber and watchful, but no longer afraid. He rubbed his palms together, cupped them over the small body, and let the heat from his skin sink in. The pup trembled once, then exhaled softly. That's it, Ryan whispered. Stay with me. Minutes stretched thin. When the pup's breathing steadied, Luna lowered her muzzle and touched Ryan's wrist, cautious, deliberate, like gratitude. He froze, surprised. It was the first time she had reached for him, not out of fear, but trust. A knock broke the quiet. 3 sharp taps on the door. Ryan stood, grabbed the handle, and opened it halfway. Nora Hayes stood outside, her ranger parka dusted white, cheeks flushed from cold. She carried a basket tucked under one arm, steam rising from it. "Morning, officer. Thought you could use breakfast." He stepped aside. "You shouldn't be out here." She grinned, shaking snow from her hood. "Try telling that to the mountain." Inside the basket were bread wrapped in cloth, a jar of honey, and a thermos. The cabin filled with the smell of real food for the first time in weeks. Luna lifted her head, but didn't growl. Nora paused, kneeling slowly. "They look stronger," she said, voice soft. "One was fading this morning," Ryan replied. "I think he'll make it." Nora smiled faintly. "You always had that rescue streak." He poured her coffee from the kettle. They sat at the table, steam curling between them. Outside, the forest glowed white and silent, the kind of silence that carried warnings. "I checked the western ridge," Nora said after a while. "Found more snares. Same kind I mentioned. Only this time they were new." Ryan frowned. "How new?" "Set less than a day ago," she said. "Still warm. Whoever's doing it isn't hunting for food. They're trapping for trade, dogs, wolves, whatever sells." Ryan's shoulders tensed. "So the prints I saw weren't random?" "No," she said quietly. "They were scouting." Luna shifted, ears pricking at Nora's voice. The ranger followed her gaze. "She senses it too." "If they're poachers, they'll be back," Ryan muttered. "That's why I came," Nora said. "You could come down to the ranger post. Roads are rough, but we can make it on snowmobiles." He shook his head. "Not leaving them. She came here for a reason." Nora studied him, voice softening. "That reason might lead the wrong kind of men to your door." Ryan met her eyes. "Then I'll be ready." She sighed, the sound half frustration, half affection. "You never did listen." "Not to good advice," he said, managing a thin smile. Nora set the honey jar on the counter before leaving. "If you change your mind, come before dusk. After dark, the ridge isn't safe." "I'll manage." She paused at the door, glancing at Luna. "She trusts you now. Don't break that." When she stepped outside, snow swallowed her figure until only her tracks remained. Ryan stood for a long moment, staring at them, before turning back to the stove. The small pup slept soundly now, nose twitching against its mother's fur. Afternoon faded to gray. Ryan strapped on his coat and stepped out again to check the perimeter. The forest stood silent except for the brittle crack of branches under frost. Halfway around the cabin, something metallic caught his eye. A trap, half buried under snow, its steel jaws open like teeth. He crouched, jaw tight. It was the same kind Nora had described. Someone had planted it less than 50 feet from his home. He disarmed it carefully, wedging a branch to keep it open, then brushed snow over the spot before heading back inside. Luna met him with a low growl, not directed at him but the door. "Yeah," he murmured. "I saw it too." She quieted, but her eyes stayed fixed on the window. As darkness deepened, Ryan settled by the stove, rifle across his knees. The pups slept bundled in the blanket, tiny ribs rising and falling. The only sounds were wind and the slow tick of burning wood. Then came a noise outside. Faint, metallic, deliberate. Ryan froze. He moved to the window and lifted the curtain's edge. Through the flurry, a figure crossed the yard, moving slow, confident. Ryan's hand went to his rifle. Luna rose beside him, fur bristling, muscles coiled. The man was tall, wrapped in dark clothing, dragging something heavy behind. A rope, maybe a trap. Ryan took one step toward the door, but before he could reach it, Luna growled low and deep, a sound that filled the room with warning. The man stopped. Even through the snow, Ryan saw the pause, the shift of posture, the turn of the head. The stranger stared at the cabin for a long moment, then melted back into the trees without a sound. Ryan waited until only the wind remained. Then he exhaled slowly, lowering his rifle. "Good girl," he whispered, running a hand along Luna's back. Her muscles relaxed, but her eyes stayed fixed on the window. Outside, the forest swallowed all trace of movement. The snow began to fall harder, erasing footprints almost as quickly as they formed. Ryan sat back down, the glow from the stove soft on his face. The pups stirred but didn't wake. Luna lay near the door now, her body angled toward the dark outside, as if guarding the line between peace and threat. The storm might bury everything by morning, traps, prints, even the truth of what waited beyond the trees. But Ryan knew what the silence meant now. It wasn't calm. It was a warning. And warnings, he'd learned, never came twice. By late afternoon, the storm clouds gathered again, turning the Montana sky into a bruised gray. Snow drifted lightly, carried by a restless wind that whispered through the trees. Inside the cabin, the air was heavy with quiet. The fire crackled low, and Ryan Cooper sat by the stove, cleaning his rifle in slow, practiced movements. Luna lay nearby, her head resting on her paws, amber eyes half closed but alert. Every sound outside, the creak of ice, the shift of branches, made her ears twitch. Ryan had spent the day reinforcing the cabin, checking windows, resetting the trap he'd found the night before, and marking new tracks with stakes. The peace felt false, like the brief calm before something breaks. At dusk, he set down his rifle and poured coffee into a chipped enamel mug. The pups stirred beside Luna, squeaking softly. He smiled faintly. "You've got the right idea," he murmured. Then came 3 slow knocks. He froze. The sound wasn't hurried or desperate. It was confident, deliberate. Ryan rose quietly, every motion careful. Luna lifted her head, muscles tensing, a low growl building in her chest. Ryan stepped to the door and glanced through the small window. A man stood there, wrapped in a heavy brown coat caked with frost. His breath fogged in the cold, his gloved hands resting loosely at his sides. He looked to be in his early 40s, tall, broad, with the weathered look of someone who'd lived too long in the cold. A thick beard framed his jaw, streaked with gray, and a scar curved from his temple down toward his cheek. The kind that wasn't an accident. Ryan opened the door halfway. "Can I help you?" The man smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Evening. Sorry to bother you. Lost my bearings out by the ridge. Road's gone. Thought I saw smoke." His voice was smooth, deep, but something in it didn't match the story. Ryan studied him. "You out here alone?" "Just me," the man said easily. "Was tracking north when the snow kicked up. I'm half frozen. Thought I'd ask if I could warm up for a bit." Ryan hesitated. Luna had moved to stand beside him, tail stiff, body between him and the stranger. Her growl was low and steady. The man's gaze dropped to her. "Fine-looking dog you got there," he said. "German Shepherd, right? Hard to find pure ones up here." Ryan's stomach tightened. "She's not for sale." The man chuckled softly. "Didn't say she was. Just noticing quality when I see it." He stepped forward slightly, but Ryan's hand stayed firm on the door. "You can come in for a few minutes," Ryan said flatly. Warm up, then move on. Appreciate that. Inside, the man removed his gloves, rubbing his hands together near the fire. His fingers were thick, calloused, a worker's hands, but the scars told a different story. Luna never took her eyes off him, positioning herself between the stranger and the pups. The man looked around. Quiet place? You live here full time? Most days, Ryan said. Must get lonely. The man's eyes lingered on the small blanket by the fire, where the pups slept. Guess not that lonely. Ryan said nothing. He poured a second cup of coffee and handed it over. The man nodded, took a sip, and watched him with faint amusement. Name's Cole Harker, he said finally. Used to run freight through these woods. Guess I picked a hell of a time to get lost. Ryan didn't return the smile. Harker, huh? I've heard that name before. The man's eyes flicked up. Maybe. I get around. Silence stretched. Outside, the wind howled, pressing against the cabin walls. Ryan gestured toward the map on the table. If you're heading north, the trail's buried. You'll want to cut east before the creek. Appreciate it. Harker leaned forward, his eyes catching the firelight. You know, you can tell a lot about a man from his dog. Loyal ones stick around. The others run the first chance they get. Luna's growl deepened. Ryan set down his mug. You got something you want to say? The man's smile returned, slow, deliberate. Just saying she's a rare breed. You don't see shepherds like that out here, not unless someone paid good money to move them. He nodded toward the pups. Even rarer to see a litter survive this cold. Ryan's expression hardened. You done warming up? The man rose, slipping his gloves back on. Sure, don't want to overstay my welcome? He glanced once more at Luna, eyes glinting with a strange admiration. She's beautiful, he said. Strong. You take care of her. Ryan opened the door. You find the ridge, keep walking. Harker smirked. Oh, I'll find it. Maybe we'll run into each other again, officer. Ryan's jaw tightened. You knew. The man's smile didn't waver. I don't forget faces. He stepped out into the snow, the wind catching his coat. Or dogs. The door closed with a hollow sound that seemed to echo longer than it should. Ryan bolted it, then stood still, listening. Luna was pacing now, restless, tail low. Her eyes never left the door. He's not coming back tonight, Ryan said quietly, though he wasn't sure he believed it. He watched her settle back near the pups, but her ears stayed up, twitching at every gust of wind. The cabin felt smaller, tighter. Even the fire seemed to burn differently, sharp, uneasy. Ryan sat down and rubbed a hand over his face. Cole Harker. The name clawed at a memory, something Nora had mentioned about a smuggling ring 2 winters ago, using old ranger routes to move illegal animals. He'd dismissed it then, not now. He crossed to the window and peered through the frost. Snow blurred everything, but he thought he saw movement at the tree line, a shape watching, just long enough to confirm he wasn't alone. Then it was gone. Luna stood beside him again, silent. This time, the fur along her neck raised. Ryan whispered, "We'll be ready next time." Outside, night swallowed the forest. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a man named Harker smiled in the dark, already thinking about the shepherd and her pups, and what they were worth. Night fell hard over Montana. The wind roared through the timber like something alive, rattling the windows and bending the pines until they groaned under the weight of snow. Ryan Cooper sat near the stove, boots off, rifle leaning within arm's reach. The fire cracked but couldn't drown out the storm outside. Luna lay by the door, head resting on her paws, her eyes half open but fixed on the dark beyond the glass. Ryan's nerves hadn't eased since the stranger left. Cole Harker's words kept echoing in his mind. "Beautiful dog, you take care of her." They weren't a compliment. They were a promise. He had seen that kind of look before, in suspects who wanted something and didn't care who got hurt in the way. The wind picked up, shaking snow loose from the roof. Ryan poured another cup of coffee, hand steady though his thoughts were not. Luna lifted her head suddenly, ears snapping forward. Her body went rigid. "What is it, girl?" he asked quietly. She gave a low growl, sharp and tense, then rose to her feet. Her eyes cut towards the window. Ryan crossed the room and peered through the frost. The storm had swallowed everything. No shapes, no shadows, just the endless white swirl. He turned back, but the space by the door was empty. "Luna?" The latch hung loose, snow curling in under the crack. His stomach dropped. He grabbed his coat, pulled on his boots, and stepped outside into the storm. Snow clawed at his face. The cold hit like a wall, stealing his breath. He called out, voice torn away by the wind. "Luna, come!" Nothing. He followed the faint impressions of her paw prints leading away from the porch, already half buried. He trudged through the dark flashlight beam, slicing through sheets of snow. The forest howled around him, trees groaning and cracking. Somewhere far off, he thought he heard barking, faint, desperate. He followed it. Minutes turned to an hour. The storm deepened. His breath burned in his lungs. He was ready to turn back when movement flashed ahead, a shape in the snow dragging something behind it. Luna. She stumbled through the drifts, fur matted with frost, panting heavily. Ryan dropped to one knee. "Hey girl, you're all right." His words died when he saw what followed her. Two small bundles of fur trailed behind, barely moving. Puppies, but not hers. Their coats were different, one golden, one black, smaller and thinner than Luna's own. They looked half dead, ribs sharp under wet fur, their cries muffled by the storm. Ryan lifted them gently, cradling both against his chest, feeling their trembling. "Where did you find them?" he murmured, voice rough. Luna pressed close, licking the pups, whining low. "All right," he said. "Let's get you home." They pushed through the storm together, Ryan breaking the path, Luna close behind. By the time they reached the cabin, his legs felt like iron, and his fingers were numb. He kicked the door open and stumbled inside. The heat hit them all at once. He dropped to his knees beside the stove and unwrapped the pups from his coat. They didn't move at first. Luna nosed them, whining, licking their faces, nudging them closer to the fire. Ryan grabbed an old towel and began rubbing them dry. Slowly, one of the pups shuddered and let out a weak cry. The other followed, breathing shallow but steady. Ryan smiled faintly, exhaustion lining his face. "You did good, girl," he whispered. Luna lay beside them, curling her body around the newcomers. Her own pups squirmed closer, noses twitching as if to question the strangers. Luna's tongue swept across the new ones again, gentle, patient. The message was clear. They were hers now, too. Ryan leaned back against the wall, chest heaving. "Not yours," he murmured softly. "But you don't care, do you?" Luna looked up at him, eyes glowing amber in the firelight. She didn't blink, didn't look away. He reached for the last of his supplies, a small tin of beans, the final strip of jerky. "All right," he said, half to himself. "We'll share?" He split the food carefully, heating the beans, breaking the jerky into smaller pieces, laying them near the pups once they could sit upright. The cabin filled with quiet warmth, the hiss of fire, the soft sound of breathing, the faint wind outside. Ryan watched Luna as she nuzzled the weakest pup closer to her chest. Her body shook with exhaustion, but her eyes stayed soft. He thought about what Nora once said. You can't keep saving things just to make up for what you lost. But maybe this wasn't about redemption. Maybe it was about survival, the kind that needs more than instinct. Ryan rubbed his palms together and leaned closer to the fire. His hands were red and raw, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. Luna shifted, resting her muzzle on his boot, eyes closing. He smiled faintly. You and me both, huh? He said quietly. Two strays trying to make sense of a world that doesn't forgive. He added another log to the fire, watching the flames climb higher, painting the walls in soft gold. The two new pups stirred beside Luna, small tails twitching in their sleep. Her breath came slow, deep, the kind that only comes when something broken has found peace. Outside, the storm raged on, erasing all traces of their path through the woods. Inside, for one fragile night, there was warmth enough to fight the cold. Ryan closed his eyes, the crackle of the stove fading into a hum. The thought came unbidden, that maybe kindness wasn't a weakness, just a different kind of strength. As the fire burned low, man and dog rested side by side, one a soldier, the other a mother, both survivors in a world that measured mercy by the breath it cost. By afternoon, the wind had settled, but the cold had not. The forest stood still, wrapped in silence that felt almost staged. Ryan Cooper shoveled the last of the snow from the porch, breath fogging in the air, eyes scanning the tree line. Every shadow looked like a threat waiting to take shape. The memory of Cole Harker's smirk 2 nights ago still lingered like a splinter under his skin. Inside, Luna slept near the fire, her body curled protectively around all 4 pups, 2 her own, 2 she had rescued. Her breathing was steady but shallow. Ryan had noticed the way she limped slightly when she walked now, how exhaustion clung to her like frost. Still, every time the wind shifted, her ears flicked toward the door. She knew danger wasn't gone. It was only waiting. A faint knock startled him. He turned sharply, rifle halfway raised, but it was Nora Hayes, wrapped in her olive parka, snow dusting her hair. Her cheeks burned red from the wind, but her eyes, steady and alert, carried news. Tracks, she said simply. Snowmobile, 2 of them. I followed them until the signal died. They came within half a mile of here. Ryan stepped aside, letting her in. You sure? Positive. One of the sleds was hauling a crate, big enough for animals. She stripped off her gloves, laying a map across the table. They looped west, then doubled back toward your ridge, probably waiting for night. Ryan's jaw tightened. Harker. Nora nodded. He's not alone this time. There were 2 sets of footprints alongside the tracks. Heavy boots, same tread as the one near your porch. Ryan looked toward Luna. Then we don't wait. We set the field. They worked fast. Using what little daylight remained, Ryan and Nora placed makeshift traps along the perimeter, fishing wire strung between trees, noise alarms made from tin cans and string, even a flare gun positioned by the cabin door. They had only 1 working rifle between them and a half-functioning radio. By dusk, the temperature had dropped below 0. The forest darkened fast. Nora tried the radio again, voice sharp through the static. Ranger Base, this is Hayes. Possible poacher activity near Seabridge Ridge. Requesting backup. The line hissed, then cut off. Signal's fading, Ryan said. Storm's building again. Then it's just us, she replied. Ryan looked at her. The tired determination etched into her face. The small scar above her lip from a fall years ago. The calm steadiness she carried even when things got bad. She was the kind of person who didn't scare easily, and he was grateful for that. The first sound came just after midnight, a distant hum, low and mechanical. Snowmobiles. 2 of them. Ryan killed the lanterns, plunging the cabin into darkness. The only light came from the faint glow of the stove. Luna stirred, rising silently, every muscle alert. Her fur bristled along her spine, and her amber eyes gleamed faintly in the dark. Ryan whispered, "Easy, girl. Stay close." The hum grew louder, then cut out completely. Silence. Then footsteps, muffled but steady, crunched through the snow outside. Ryan peered through the narrow crack in the shutters. 2 men approached from the tree line. One carried a rifle, the other a crowbar. Their movements were confident, rehearsed. 2 of them, Ryan whispered. "Make that 3, Nora said from the back window, one flanking the shed. Ryan nodded once. "We hold until they're close." Snow crunched closer. A shadow passed across the window, and then the sound of metal scraping at the door hinge. Ryan raised his rifle, breath steady. The latch began to turn. "Now," he said. Nora fired the flare gun through the side window. The sudden burst of red light exploded across the snowfield, blinding the intruders. One cursed and stumbled back. The other swung his rifle toward the window, firing blindly. The sound cracked through the night. Ryan kicked the door open, stepped out into the storm, and tackled the nearest man. The snow cushioned the fall, but stole his breath. The man was tall, stocky, with a face half hidden behind a scarf. But Ryan recognized the scar cutting through his eyebrow. "Harker!" The 2 men rolled, fists striking through snow and cold air. Ryan drove an elbow into Harker's ribs, disarming him. Harker retaliated, snarling. "Should have kept that dog inside." Inside, Luna barked once, sharp, commanding, and leapt through the open doorway. She hit the second poacher like a storm, teeth catching the man's sleeve. He screamed, swinging wildly, but she didn't let go. Nora ran from the back of the cabin, firing another flare to light the field. The red glow revealed everything. 3 figures tangled in snow, Luna crouched over her target, Ryan pressing Harker down, the snow around them stained and torn. Harker spat blood, eyes blazing. "She's worth more than both of you put together." Ryan slammed him back into the snow. "Not to me." The sound of an engine roared again, another snowmobile approaching. Nora spun towards the ridge, shouting, "Cover!" But before the new arrival could reach them, the engine sputtered and died. A voice shouted through the storm, "Ranger unit, drop your weapons!" Harker froze. For a heartbeat, his expression shifted from fury to fear. Then he tried to run. Luna lunged, knocking him off balance. Ryan caught him by the collar and slammed him into the snow, pinning him until Nora's flashlight beam hit them both. 2 rangers approached from the tree line, weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them," one barked. Ryan lifted his, breathing hard. Harker and 2 accomplices. Illegal traps, attempted theft of protected animals. They cuffed the men quickly, dragging them toward the sleds. The other poacher, the one Luna had taken down, clutched a bitten arm, face pale with shock. He avoided looking at her. As the Rangers led them away. Ryan knelt beside Luna. Her chest rose and fell fast, tongue lolling, breath steaming in the cold. Snow clung to her muzzle like frost. "Easy," he said softly, brushing a hand along her neck. "You did good." Her tail thumped weakly once. She rested her head against his knee, eyes half closed but calm. Nora crouched beside them, voice soft. "She saved your life, you know." Ryan nodded. "And I owe her mine." The storm began to break, the clouds thinning, the first light of dawn slipping through the trees. Around them, the snow reflected red from the flare's dying glow. The danger was over, at least for now. Ryan looked out toward the ridge, where the snowmobiles disappeared into the forest. Then he looked back at Luna, lying beside him, her breathing slow and steady. "Come on, girl," he whispered. "Let's go home." He lifted her gently, carrying her back toward the cabin. The wind had calmed, and the silence that followed wasn't empty anymore. It was peace earned, raw, fragile, but real. Morning came slow over the Montana ridge. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world carved in white and silence. The snow glittered under the pale sun, and smoke rose gently from the cabin chimney. Thin, steady, like a heartbeat returning after too long in the cold. Ryan Cooper stood on the porch, hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket, watching as the Rangers' snowmobiles disappeared down the valley with the captured poachers in tow. The sound faded until all that remained was the wind, softer now, almost kind. Inside, the cabin was a scene of warmth and exhaustion. Luna lay on a folded blanket near the stove, bandages around her front leg where the fight had cut deep. The pups, all 6 now, were piled beside her in a tangle of fur and sleep. Their small bellies rose and fell in rhythm, tiny whimpers breaking through the quiet now and then. Ryan crouched next to them, checking the bandage, his fingers moving carefully. "You're tougher than all of us, girl," he murmured. Nora Hayes sat at the table behind him, her parka off, hair loose from her knit cap. She was in her mid-30s, lean from years of backcountry work, her skin wind-burnished, her expression sharp but gentle in the corners. She sipped coffee from a tin mug, her gaze fixed on the scene before her. "You should get some rest too," she said. Ryan gave a faint smile. "Not yet. Feels wrong to sleep while she's hurting." Nora stood, crossing the room to him. "She'll heal. Dogs like her don't quit." Her hand brushed his shoulder lightly, a gesture between comrades who had been through fire together. "You both made it through something bad. That counts for more than you think." He nodded, eyes still on Luna. "I thought I was done saving lives, Nora. Guess I was wrong." "You weren't wrong," she said softly. "You just hadn't found the ones worth saving again." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, filled with meaning that didn't need to be spoken. Outside, a snowflake drifted past the window, the last remnant of the storm, dissolving against the glass. Later that day, one of the Rangers returned, Officer Mark Rayner, a broad-shouldered man in his 40s with sun-worn skin and a beard flecked with white. His uniform was creased from long patrols, and his eyes, dark green under the brim of his hat, carried that steady calm of someone who'd seen too much but still believed in doing what was right. He knocked once and stepped in, shaking off snow. "You Cooper?" Ryan rose. "That's me." Rayner nodded toward the sleeping pups. "Heard about your rescue. Hell of a thing you did last night. We're filing charges against Harker and his crew. Illegal capture, firearm assault, animal trafficking. Could have gone a lot worse if you hadn't acted fast." Ryan gave a short nod. "We got lucky." Rayner's gaze softened as he looked down at Luna. "She the one they were after?" Ryan's voice was quiet. "Yeah, they didn't deserve to even look at her." The Ranger crouched, resting a hand just above her head without touching. "You planning to keep her?" Ryan hesitated, then looked at Nora. She smiled slightly. "I already called it in. Papers are on the way. She's yours if you want her." Ryan exhaled, something in his chest easing. "Yeah," he said. "I want her." By afternoon, Rayner left, leaving behind a small envelope with adoption forms and a pat on Ryan's shoulder. "You've done good, officer," he said before stepping into the cold. When the door closed, the cabin felt different, quieter, but not empty. Ryan sat at the table, the papers before him. His hand hovered over the line marked owner's name. For years, he had avoided writing his name on anything that tied him to others. But now, he wrote it with steady strokes. Ryan Cooper. That night, as the fire burned low, he opened a small wooden box from the shelf. Inside was a worn leather collar, dark brown, the brass tag dull but readable. K9 Duke. He ran his thumb across it slowly, memories washing through him. Duke had been his partner back in his days as an officer, a German shepherd with the same unbreakable spirit Luna carried now. Duke had saved him once during a drug bust gone wrong, shoving him aside before the blast. Ryan had carried the collar ever since, a symbol of loyalty that outlasted loss. He turned toward Luna, who lifted her head, eyes following him with quiet curiosity. He knelt beside her, holding out the collar. "You earned this," he said softly, "not as a replacement, as family." Luna's ears twitched. He slipped the collar gently around her neck, adjusting it so the tag rested against her chest. She huffed once, then leaned forward, pressing her muzzle against his arm. The contact was brief, but it carried more weight than words. From the table, Nora watched, her lips curving into a small, knowing smile. "Looks like she accepts the promotion," she said. Ryan chuckled. "Guess that makes me her partner again." The cabin glowed in the amber light. The storm had ended, and for the first time, Ryan realized the silence outside wasn't loneliness anymore. It was peace. He looked towards the window. The mountains beyond were blanketed in snow, unbroken and vast, but inside, life pulsed in small, fragile breaths. The pups stirring, Luna's tail flicking against the floor, the fire crackling. Nora packed her gear, pulling on her coat. "I'll head back to town before the next front rolls in," she said. "The Rangers will check on you in a week." Ryan walked her to the door. "You sure you don't want to stay another night? Roads'll ice over." She shook her head, smiling. "I've seen worse. Besides, someone's got to make sure those reports reach the station." He nodded. "Thank you, Nora. For everything." She paused at the door, her eyes soft. "Take care of them, Ryan. They need you." He glanced back at Luna and the pups. "Yeah," he said. "I think I need them more." When she left, Ryan returned to the porch. The horizon was painted in pink and gold, the sun breaking through the last veil of cloud. He watched his breath rise in faint curls. Behind him, Luna stepped onto the porch, limping slightly but determined. She stood beside him, ears forward, gaze fixed on the distance. Ryan knelt, resting a hand on her collar. The tag caught the morning light, gleaming faintly. "You didn't just survive the storm, Luna," he said quietly. "You brought me back from it." She looked up at him, eyes warm and steady, and pressed her head against his shoulder. He smiled, eyes glinting under the pale sun. The snow around them glowed with light. The cabin behind them no longer looked like a hiding place. It looked like home. For the first time in years, Ryan Cooper wasn't just surviving, he was living, with family, in a world reborn under the dawn. Sometimes, miracles don't come with light from heaven. They come wrapped in fur, with tired eyes that still choose to trust. In the frozen silence of Montana, one man found not just survival, but grace. A reminder that God's love often walks on 4 paws and meets us when our hearts are coldest. If you've ever felt lost, if you've ever prayed for a sign that kindness still matters, maybe this story was meant for you. Because in every act of compassion, no matter how small, heaven whispers, "You are not alone. May God bless you and every soul who believes that love, human or animal, is never wasted. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Paws Kingdom. Leave a comment below. Tell us how faith, loyalty, or a faithful companion once changed your life. Together, let's keep spreading light. One story, one prayer, one miracle at a time.